Hey there, it's Will. I thought I would talk about NAT again, Nordic American Tanker Ship. So I've done a few videos on this, and my basic advice for most of those videos was not to be buying it because it was in a downtrend. So a lot of times people just think, oh, there's going to be all this oil or, sitting around and they're going to get paid to store it. There's some sort of story there or expectation, or for some shipping is, economy's picking up and, there's going to start shipping again and stuff like that. So what I try to do on this channel is talk about technical analysis and the charts. So without repeating myself, you had this big parabolic move and a spike here. And I've talked about, how to deal with that situation. But once you see it coming down, some people think, oh, I'm going to buy more, it's cheaper. But you can see, I look at trends, you have this downtrend here. So when the stock's going down like that, you draw a line on the top, across the tops of the price, the candles here. And what you're looking for is a break of that trend. So you had a break back here, and I did a video on this, and it comes up above this 8 EMA. And the 8 EMA is sloping up, and then you actually got up above the 50 moving average. So lots of good signs right here that you were going to have a breakout. However, first of all, when you're buying stocks, it's a probability situation, so there's no 100% guarantees. You're buying based on a probability, so it's not going to work out 100% of the time. Actually, this move was pretty substantial. It's 18-19%. But one of the things you can do for trends is to look for, before you assume, so there's different ways and times that you can get in on a trade. So this is the first break of a downtrend, but you can look for higher lows. So a higher low to be established. So instead of buying as soon as it breaks through, in terms of a swing trade, longer term, like a multi-day trade, you can wait for an establishment of a higher low. And obviously you'd want to see it going up and having a pretty decent uptrend. So there was a higher low here, but it never really took off. So after that higher low was established, you ended up going down below the 8 EMA, and then you had another downtrend. So right now, the reason I'm doing this video is there's been a bit of a move here. So when you see, there's different sort of candlestick signals. This is a doji, a bit of a gap, big candle, another huge candle. That would generally indicate a change in trend. Of course, with this situation we're having, it's quite volatile, but you have a consolidation, a flat sort of period here. You see this line I drew. You'd want to see it sort of break up above that line. And then so on Friday, we had this big candle. This was about 8%. And so when you see a big candle that's bigger than, a lot of the previous candles, plus a breakthrough, and going up above the 8 EMA with an upsloping 8 EMA, it doesn't mean necessarily buy it right away, but it's a sign that there's something changing. And you can see here, so I'm in the pre-market right now, it's 9:30. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about TC2000. I'm using that charting software. I mentioned that in most of my videos. There's a pre-market in version 20 now. So you can see stocks that are moving in pre-market, which is really nice because, the index is great, but individual stocks, you want to see what they're doing. And this shows you the pre-market. It also shows you the post-market after 4 o'clock Eastern. You'll see what's going on. You can reduce this, timeline to 10-minute chart, stuff like that. The other thing that you can look at is indicators. So MACD, this is like a MACD, and we had a cross here, and you can see that there's an increasing momentum here. So that's a confirmation that things are moving up. But you had this crossover back here as well. So when you're buying, you have to be prepared that it may not continue to go up. So you have to look at stop losses. Another indicator on here that I have is called a volatility stop, and that's a red or a green dot. So when it's green, it's below the price, is when it's a good sign that you can buy it. But it kind of helps you potentially with not just stop loss, because this uses the average true range. So it gives you a place to potentially put your stop loss. But it's also an indicator in the sense that when it's changing from red, green, above to green is when you'd go long. So the red would be shorting. So you can see how it worked pretty well once this red dot changed. So if you were buying this stock and you moved your stop loss to here, it would have got triggered out, say here, and then you'd be out. And then these are all red dots. And then there might be a little short-term bump here that might have not made you much money, but you're not, like I said, it's not 100%. And then you had all these red dots with a downtrend, a flat period, and all of a sudden now today you have a green dot. So it's not 100% obviously, but it's a indicator that things are potentially in a good position. So you have a few rising stochastics is another one. So this obviously happened back here as well. But if you want to be more conservative, you can wait until you've established a good uptrend, which would be a higher low. And the other great thing about TC2000 is that you can, there's a couple of things. You can scan for scenarios where the MACD crosses over the moving average here. So what you can do is, so I've got a bunch of moving averages here. If I, or actually down here, I've got price percent oscillator, which is similar to MACD. If I click on that arrow, and I can create a condition for a crossover. So if I go create condition, and then instead of greater than, I'll say the price is, the price percent oscillator is crossing up. So that's one way to do it. I've actually got that in here. So if I go easy scan and I go PPO, which is similar to MACD, or I might have MACD, let's see. Yeah, so I'm going to use PPO just because I have a crossover here. So when it crosses up, and then you can scan and it'll show you, and you can also say, like if you're scanning within the last 3 bars, so it doesn't mean just right now, but you could say if it's crossed within the last few periods, few candlesticks. The other cool thing when you're looking at shipping is to click on this industry info. And you can either open the sector, which is industrials, or you can look at the industry, which is a smaller subset of the sector, which would be the industry for shipping and ports. And now you've got a list of stocks that are related to NAT. So there might be other stocks that are better in terms of the chart. Now, a lot of people will normally sort by percent change, and that can work, but you can see how this is in a big downtrend. It's not the greatest. So what I've done is I've added a couple of formulas, which is the slope of the 8 EMA and also the distance of the price to the 8 EMA. So the first one, if I sort, it's going to give me the ones that have the biggest slope in the 8 EMA. And sometimes that'll be too high, too far away. But if we go to the next one here, so these ones kind of show that, you look at this one already, it's gapped up huge. And so it gives you a better sense of which ones might be in an uptrend instead of just looking at percent change for that day, for the previous day. So that one looks pretty good too. You can see it's going above the 50. It's had a bit of a longer period of up trend here than the NAT, and NAT's there, and then GRIN. So these are all kind of flat, but they're starting to move a little bit. The other thing you can do is sort by the distance from the price to the 8 EMA. So a lot of times I don't really want to buy things that are too far up off the 8 EMA. So I can scroll down to like this is like a percent. So 1%, 2%. So you could potentially, if you're trying to buy stocks that are close to the T line, the 8 EMA, without getting too far up above, you could sort by that as well. and just make sure that, you know, you're not getting things. So like if you buy up here, you end up losing when it drops. You want to go back in time and look at where you might have wanted to buy this. And usually that's when it's closer to the 8 EMA and not way up high off of that. So it's a little bit useful as well to try to find things that are close. But sometimes when you're doing that, you're not getting a great looking chart, like a flat sort of chart. So this slope is nice as well to make sure that you have, you know, these are mostly flat because the shipping's not doing great. But we're in this period where it might be turning around. I'm not saying it's going to turn around, but Eagle's another one where it had this period. And so like I mentioned earlier that you could buy when it, you know, at certain signals here early in the game before it hits the 50, when it breaks up above the T line, when there's a gap up, a doji here, doji gap up, you could decide you want to get in here. Other people would see this resistance here and say, I want to wait till it breaks up, which is about at the 50, you see? So you could buy here early. You could buy when it breaks out through the resistance. Other people won't buy the first breakout. They want to see it come back. So you see how it broke through the 50 and came back and retested the 50? So some people are going to want to wait to here. The other thing that coincidentally happens is I mentioned that you might want to wait till you'll have a higher low. So this is the low, and then it broke the downtrend. So if I draw a line, it's not a huge downtrend, but you see it broke the downtrend. Now you'd want to wait for that higher low to establish. So you want to see it start to move up after the higher low. So this is coincidentally a spot where it bounced off the 50. So that would have been a good sign that you had support at the 50. It broke through the 50, came back, retested it. It's a higher low right at that spot. You broke through this resistance here a couple times. It bounced, and then this time. So there's a few different spots that you could get in depending on your comfort and, you know, conservatism. But if you're getting in right around here, and then, you know, obviously you have to look at, you know, it's 40% at the peak, and then when you'd want to get out. And then we broke this trend line here, and now we've been in a bit of a downtrend. So there could be some opportunities in the shipping, but I thought I would talk about that in detail. So hopefully that helped you guys. And if you want to pick up TC2000, it's really useful, as I showed, for finding related stocks and scans for conditions and stuff like that, and drawing on here and stuff like that. And indicators are great. And you could put alerts on here as well. And the pre-market is another thing I mentioned, which is great. If you want to get a free trial or $25 off if you buy, because I'm also using this, there's a link in the description of the video below. Talk to you guys later.